Oh, I'm recording. A new iPhone. Uh, well, doggone it being new. It's my first iPhone. People, today is May 31st, 2019. I want to take a moment to address something. Okay, Google. Title 18 United States Code, section what for Russian collusion? Silence. The reason why there is silence is that there is no such crime known as Russian collusion. Now, if you Google it, or if you Google this, why was Robert Muller appointed to, what was he appointed to investigate? And I think it's going to say something like he was appointed to investigate the Russian government's attempt to influence our elections, and whether or not candidate Donald Trump and his campaign were involved in those efforts. What efforts to influence our elections? Has Congress enacted laws or made laws and passed them to former presidents that make such conduct a crime? No. So why did we spend $40 million why did we spend 40 some million dollars for Robert Mueller to be appointed and to investigate something? No wonder he called it a witch hunt. It's not a crime. We can become a crime. Now Congress can now pass to the President of the United States. Let me see if I can pause this here. Say I'm not going to be able to talk because I'm recording. So we'll talk. Be good. So going forward, Congress, and if Congress was the Democrats are controlling it, and the Republicans were controlling it before the Democrats assumed power in January of 2019. Now we are on May 31st of 2019. So the Republicans in Congress took no measures that I'm aware of to enact a bill, to make a bill, draft a bill, vote on it, and get it to the president for his signature that would make this alleged conduct, colluding with Russian officials or Russia's efforts to influence our election, a federal offense. The Democrats have assumed power, so what we're not going to do, why not? If you so, then pass it to Trump. This conduct that they alleged that they thought occurred. Now, what Russia did, we can't charge Russia for doing that, but we can't charge people of the United States for assisting. But we need to make a bill, and we need to pass that to a president. It don't have to be Trump. The next president after Trump, was that in 2026, whoever becomes president in 2027, maybe he or she will sign a bill into law that will make whatever the Robert Mueller was appointed to investigate a crime. Now, another thing I want to touch upon is, if you still Google that, you will see that Mr. Robert Mueller was appointed to not investigate obstruction of justice, unless I'm, crazy or suffering from amnesia, dementia, something like that. If my understanding that he was appointed by Deputy Director Rod Rosenstein to investigate what they dub, or whatever it's called, as Russian collusion, not obstruction of justice. So, granted this be true, that Robert Mueller was not appointed to investigate an obstruction of justice, but whatever he was appointed to do, which I thought was Russia's efforts to influence our elections, and whether or not presidential candidate Donald Trump himself and his campaign officials were involved in those efforts. So, gleaning from this, because I don't always have time to stay abreast in the news, I only get my news from YouTube. I don't listen to nothing else. Other than when I do listen to it, I know it's, and that's bad. I'm biased because what they've done has gotten me biased. CNN, Because I know I actually see what Mr. Trump. Well, I already knew it, but I saw an example of it when they said President Trump said that he would not deal with Nancy and Miss Nancy and Mr. Schumer until they stop investigating him. So Trump is that stupid to say that. But anyway, where I'm going with this is here. Robert Mueller, obviously, during the course of this witch hunt investigation into something that is not, and then since he's saying that he cannot indict, of course you cannot. Prosecutors don't indict. Grand juries do the indicting. We talk crazy. Prosecutors don't indict. They prosecute. Grand juries indict. What we lay information, what we call probable cause, that this person may or may not have committed a crime against the United States. Or if it's in a state like Texas, or whether this person has committed an offense or a crime. When I use the term crime, I mean criminal. When I use the term offense, I mean civil. Now, so evidently during the course, 6 minutes have passed, of this so-called witch hunt and investigation, obstruction of justice was born. Now, Mr. Mueller said that he couldn't find, and that he didn't find, and he spent and he used $40 billion of your money, your taxpayers' money. Was I working? So I wasn't paying the type of taxes that you pay, and so he fucked off $40 million. Damn, just how many people could we have gotten off the street and cleaned up and see if they had any brilliance in their mind and invented something that have benefited the world or the country, our country. Now, let me speed this up. So, not Russian collusion, but the obstruction of justice was given birth. So now we can tie that. So Robert Mueller had to come out, or his team, with the obstruction of justice. So this is coming from Robert Mueller. Couldn't, because he wasn't appointed to investigate obstruction of justice. No one was saying anything about obstruction of justice. Obstruction of justice is a process crime. So in order for President Trump and someone else to have they're only saying Trump obstructed justice. See, it's kind of hard to follow what these people are saying, because obstructed whose justice? What justice? When? Is the statute of limitation run? I mean, what are you talking? No, you know what the fuck we're talking about. We're talking about he was trying to, how? By tweeting? This is a witch hunt. That's obstructing justice. What did he do? There are elements to every offense or crime. We have the universe. And we call, in our universe, that get into galaxies and the Milky Way, which I lack knowledge. But I do know that here on Earth, we have, I think, 116 elements. Now, the obstruction elements, Earth. This is Earth, dirt, wind, oxygen, fire. So, what some of the elements of that we must have. Some elements had to be in existence for life to begin, and if some of these elements cease to show up, then life would stop and people would die. So in order for Congress to impeach Donald Trump, they have to know what they're looking for. All they know is that obstruction of justice. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Trump. Who? When? Well, it had to be during the Mueller investigation. Why? That's what we want to. Well, we know because he didn't want to be caught. That's why he did it. Okay. Who, what, when, where, why, how. They'll never be able to get through the element of how. How did Trump obstruct justice? Mueller cannot tell you. Why can he not tell you? Because he doesn't know. But he can tell you that if Trump was not guilty of it, he would have said so. But he cannot tell you how Trump obstructed. I know how he did it. He was tweeting. This is the only way he could have done it. Because he gave Mueller everything he wanted. Only thing that Mueller didn't get, and that's because President Trump yielded to his attorney, Mr. Julian, whatever his name, however you pronounce it, told him, no, you're not going to go before Mr. Muller and testify. You'll do so in writing. And I'll be wanting to do so in writing because I'll say one thing and then the next thing you know, it appears that Whitfield, so even in writing they say it appears. So, wow. So I definitely, so I don't want, I mean, if I testify, I want it to be video recorded where the world can see so it can't be edited either. So, of course, he would not allow Mr. Trump to testify in person. Put it in writing, we'll answer your question. Unless you want to look at the wrinkles in my face, how I go to looking crazy or whatever. This, so you can determine, oh yeah, you got to be guilty because look how you keep scratching your hair. Look how you keep doing this here. So yeah, so put it in writing, same shit. Finally, almost done here. So I guess I know I've covered what I set out to cover in this video here. Now, obstruction of justice. How can Congress impeach President Donald Trump for obstruction of justice when they lack the element, or I'm going to call it not element here, but a component of how did he do it? You need facts. Elements are facts. Facts are elements. So in order for you have, just like a prosecutor would have to prove, because the House of Representatives, as I have stated before in other videos, will act as the prosecutor, and the Senate will act as a jury, and I assume the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate would be the judge, because you have to have a judgment on the verdict from the Senate for impeachment. And without that verdict, so either one of them would have to render a verdict against Mr. Trump and cause it to be executed by removing him from my office as of such that he has So we don't waste any more money here. We're not come on, American people. We're not gonna keep letting these homosexuals, the Democrats, waste your money like this. Don't keep letting them get away with this here. But see, you keep letting these people think that you're stupid. Probably why I understand they took history out the schools so they could do stuff like this here. But again, you need to be able to state facts to support a offense or crime. So in this case, they're speaking of people watching me. We're speaking of obstruction. You need, how did he do it? You would have to be able to state to the senator sitting as a jury, how did he do it? Well, he was tweeting that this is Robert Mueller's on a witch hunt. This is the United States. Congress should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or the right of the people to petition. So he was not petitioning the government. Trump has rights just because he's president of the United States. Even as a president, come on now. I mean, I'm not finna do that. I'm not finna, because I know the American people, Generation Y, lack knowledge of history, but you have to be able to state who is an element. President Trump, or then candidate Trump. Who, what? He obstructed justice. Okay, how? Congress can't get past that. And then this is Robert Mueller's putting this out that's where it come from. Google it. I mean, I haven't found nothing. If I'm missing something, please somebody say something that he was appointed. That what is the obstruction of? That's a process crime. Okay, and lastly, like burglar of a building. Burglar of a building is not a crime. I've once broke into a house before, apartment, but my intent was not to steal, but to put out the fire. So I was sent to prison for 19 and a half years for burglar of a building with intent to commit theft. Now, that's an issue of itself, but what I'm getting at, if and since there was no Russian collusion, which is not a crime, found by Robert Mueller, then the underlying crime, obstruction of justice, it's not there either, because and then too, there has to be probable cause. See, he had no business investigating because there was no probable cause. There had to been probable cause for him to start an investigation. They are taking a fucking advantage of, and why is the Department of Justice not saying you can't do that? We got to have probable cause. Rod Rosenstein appointed Robert Mueller. There was no probable cause. Would you listen to the media? The media is what they talking about. It's not proper because you have to have